Morning. We will call the March 26th DRC meeting to order.
Tell them.
And we'll call the meeting to order. All right. Thank you very much. Start with roll call. Community development is present. Police,
Mike McKinley.
public services,
Diana Almodovar.
fire,
Jeremy Holderfield.
building.
John Hanson.
And I'll just remind everybody that's in the audience, if you're an applicant, the meeting is being live streamed. So if you have anything to say, please come up to the podium so we can get your comments on the record. So we have several items on the agenda this morning. We have Palucci Acres annexation, and then a future land use, and then there's also a vacation of right-of-way easement. I'd like to take all those and discuss those at the same time, as that's the same project. I'm the project manager on that. There is a map or PowerPoint that was provided by the applicant that I'll provide as reference. So you can see the location of the Palucci Acres development, primarily south and north of Poncan Road, east of Jason Dwelly. And then there's a future land use application to amend a portion of the property from residential low suburban to commercial. And then there's an annexation that you can see in the red square on the right-hand corner of the screen, which would, if annexed, then there would be a future land use amendment to bring that into the city and give it a residential low suburban future land use, which is 3.5 units per acre. And then this graphic details the right-of-way vacation. There's a 40-foot platted right-of-way in an old plat. I believe it's called Merrimack, that is near the proposed area for development. And I believe the applicant is requesting to vacate just a portion of that right-of-way, 20-foot portion, and then put it within the boundaries of their development. Applicant did receive comments in regards to these applications. Primarily, the annexation, if it creates an enclave, we need confirmation from Orange County that it would not. And then just some informational items as well. So I know the applicant's in attendance. Are there any questions from the Development Review Committee on this item?
I have a couple questions. Are we doing anything with the S-curve? We've had several accidents in that S-curve. Is it being straightened out through this development or anything? Or are we just going to continue to increase traffic down Poncan into that dangerous S-curve? That's one question I have. The other question I have is we had a severe water main break, I think it was, or sewer break at Vic in Poncan that shut that road down for 3 or 4 years, or 3 or 4 days, I'm sorry. Before we move forward with anything on this project, can the city assure us that the infrastructure there can support all this development and the increase in the sewer and water capacity that we're not going to have? Because it's my understanding those are some of the oldest pipes in the city from when they broke. And how is that going to affect us in the future before we move forward with this great big development? If we can't have some assurances that it's going to not deteriorate the infrastructure going to other residents, then I think we have some problems we need to address.
Public services, those are the infrastructure. Do you want to address those? Or, I mean, the applicant is here. It looks like he's ready to discuss those questions as well.
I would like to hear from the applicant because we have new staff in utilities that are reviewing capacity in the lines for new development, and they might have already coordinated with our new staff and in utilities section.
Thank you. Luke Klassen, Appian Engineering. Chief, appreciate the questions. With Poncan Road, with respect to that S-curve that you're referring to, it's basically in the center of the Palucci assemblage. Right now, Poncan is 60 feet wide for the right-of-way. Specifically, the S-curve is right there at that Pittman connection, is where the bad area is and where they're concerned. We're already working with, we're marking up an exhibit to cut back the existing foliage to kind of help visibility right there, that S-curve. I think that's a lot of the problem, is that the site visibility is really bad at that corner. So we're already going to do that just on our own in advance. In addition, our proposed development plan includes 30 feet of right-of-way dedication on both sides of the road. So you would actually double the right-of-way from 60 to 120 feet wide. That'll allow us to take those sharper turns and kind of flatten them out a little bit. Now, in saying that, you can see on the map that there's existing lakes and depression areas. There's actually 3 named lakes there. I think the one that's right there at Pittman is actually Wolf Lake, I want to say, but there's 3 separate named lakes on the Orange County Lake map index. And so There's going to be some restrictions that we're going to have as far as our ability to completely flatten out the curve. You can only do so much, but there's going to be the ability to do some of it. The extent of that, we're going to have to work with a traffic consultant to have them evaluate what they can do. But in doubling the road, you'll be able to do some amount of flattening of the curve, let's call it.
I mean, you attend all these, Luke, and you know that the area a little bit further to the east was a concern with the development that was going in there, being right there in the curves, the school zone, and school crossing and everything else. And now we're quadrupling the traffic that's going to go down Pond Can into these S curves, the first S curve at the intersection that you first mentioned, and then the one further down. They're just going to get more dangerous. And unless, to me, if I don't have some kind of assurance that we're going to do something to straighten this road out or fix some of these issues by doubling the capacity on Pond Can Road, then I can't move forward from a public safety perspective.
In response to that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, we've done some preliminary evaluations of the projected traffic and existing background traffic, and based on what we're showing, there's significant roadway improvements that we're currently showing just from an access management, improving the roadway standpoint, to the tune of roughly $20 million.
I think right now it's maybe closer to 10, but the total investment, and when you also include impact fees and other things, will probably be around that $20 million number.
Right.
I would also like to say that while the future land use map amendment that we're proposing before you today, it's only includes the 40-acre portion, which is in Orange County, which already has entitlement rights to, I believe, 5 units to the acre, and we will subsequently have a PD that's going to come in that has a lower density than that. So, and all of the rest of the property already has existing entitlement rights for density. So we're not asking, and what you'll see that in more detail when a PD comes forward, subsequent to this that we're working on. It's much less dense than the actual entitlements allow for the overall property. So I do understand there are safety concerns, and our transportation consultant is working in detail to prepare a TIA. They've done some they've gotten some of the crash information in the area for the last 5 years. They're analyzing that and looking at what options we have to kind of help with safety and security. We have already had 2 community meetings, and it's been brought up by many of the residents. So we do understand that that's something that we're going to need to address.
And I think traffic's probably one of the main issues that this is going to come down. So we look forward to the opportunity.
I think it's going to be a significant issue.
Yeah, and we look forward to the opportunity to work with both city and county to address the issues with Pond Can Road, and then the city for Vic and Pittman. And hopefully help out emergency services. I think there's some things that this development can do that can provide access to Hamrick in a much faster way by coming off Vic versus having to go that strange loop around Pittman. There's different access points and connectivity that we can do for other developments as well. And so I think we're trying to work with staff to help from an emergency standpoint, but also do our part in doing the roadway improvements that I think are needed for this area.
Well, the connections are important, but something on Pond Can is significantly important because even if you go at lower density, you're still significantly increasing with this large development. The number of cars are going to travel down Pond Can because they're going to go to the schools. You can clear away all the brush you want, but speed's the factor.
Yeah.
And you can see the curve, but if you're going too fast, you're still going to straighten the curve out without us straightening it out. So, until I have some assurances that there's going to be something done or see some kind of ideas of what's going to be done to improve the safety of Pond Can Road through all these S curves, I can't approve this. I'm not in agreement with it.
I can tell you that, as Aaron indicated, this is just future land use only for the 40 acres on that southeast corner, and then the small chain. Yeah, those 2 areas right there.
And I understand that, but we have a history of going down the road and then getting so far we can't back out.
I think we've already committed.
I realize we're just discussing primarily the annexation, and
Correct.
You can annex a property into the city, but I just want you to know my objections as you start to go forward with your development. I have safety concerns for Pond Can Road. I have concerns, and Public Works has to resolve that because the main break we had that shut Vic Road down for 4 days at the intersection of Pond Can, where we had to use public safety to direct traffic around all that stuff, is the infrastructure so old that it can't support this development? And if it is the developer going to improve it to ensure that we don't have these type of problems?
So that's the next thing I want to address. So first, just so I can stick on traffic, I would encourage you to really consider, if this is just about the future land use and the annexation, stay on that. We're committing to doing the 30-foot right-of-way dedication, which is bigger than anyone who's done in this area. I think it's a little over, or right around 12 acres of dedication total, which is a very significant contribution and really helps the county and the city both fix Pond Cam Road. So we're committed to doing that. There's no restrictions on the annexation of future land use that you can attach to it, but at the PD level, at zoning, we'll be able to make that as one of the conditions. But we're fine stating it in all public meetings that we will be doing that. So I think from a traffic standpoint, we're saying we're doing our part. We're still evaluating what improvements need to happen. So we're doing everything we can at this stage to meet your concerns with that. For the utility standpoint, we have been in touch with DA and the city's consultant. They're evaluating the utilities. As of right now, they're stating they have capacity. Now we're also asking for the as-built to evaluate the actual, if just because their model shows you have capacity, the models assume the pipes are all good. So we're saying, hey, let's take it one step further. Give us the as-built information. Let's actually evaluate the capacity of the line or the longevity of the line, whether or not we need to do improvements to the lines. So we're trying to do a dual approach there and looking
And
at
you're
it for
saying
capacity
that the
and
future land use that you're requesting is a lower density than what it currently
correct.
is zoned for.
Yeah, the area,
And
if
we're
you
not
see
coming
it,
back later to increase that.
no, we're significantly, all we're doing is adding restrictions to ourselves. So right now in
And
Orange
that's as
County,
part of the PD. We
right,
understand the future land use can't add restrictions,
correct.
but you will see a subsequent PD coming forward that will
Mm-hmm.
have substantial restrictions on the density that's much lower than what we have here. And I think that'll add a little bit of clarity to some of your questions.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to go through this process first
First.
before we can get there. And we're working with the city attorney to understand if that's something that can go at the same time. So there's assurances from the commission, from the members of the DRC,
Right.
that some of these restrictions will be imposed. So we're continuing to work through that
'Cause
process.
the current entitlements of the 617 acres, 577 are currently in the city, and they have high density allowances on the north side of Pond Can. On the south side, it's everything you see in pink is the 3.5 dwelling units per acre.
Poncan has high density to the north of or low density?
North,
No, on the
north,
north of Poncan, the
It's low
comprehensive
density.
plan caps it at 2 units an acre.
2
two,
units per acre. So
no,
it's low density.
from residential, but it also has 2 FAR in this East Shore Gateway. It's over 6 million square feet of commercial and 1,850 units if you add it all up.
Okay. I've just always known that the
It,
north
it
of
is
Poncan
limited to 2
residential is
dwelling
low
units per
density,
acre.
2 per acre.
Correct. It is, but it has with that a 2.0 FAR, so it's commercial and residential. And we're saying we want to restrict that. We'll do that with the PD. For the future land use, all we're discussing is the 40 acres. That's Orange County. It's currently under Orange County regulations at low density residential at 5 dwelling units per acre. We're asking to bring it into the city so that the city has control over the entire 617 acres as opposed to just 577, and then we develop 40 under Orange County. It doesn't really make much sense to do that, or from our perspective, it doesn't make much sense. And so we're saying we'll bring it into the city, reduce it from the 5 dwelling units per acre to the 3.5, which is per the comp plan. Everything south of Pond Can is 3.5.
And the future land use amendment for the commercial parcel, it might be a slight increase in intensity in that specific area, but as it relates to our overall PD, it's really just a transfer of a small portion of the development within that mixed use gateway district that has a much larger intensity down to an area that makes much more sense for
Correct.
commercial development at that intersection of Jason Dwelly and Ponkin.
And to give you some peace of mind, also, I'll tell you with our proposed plan that you'll see with the PD, the restrictions we're putting on ourselves, we're going from south of Pond Can from 3.5 dwelling units per acre to 1.58 is what we're actually proposing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll just go on the record saying any increased density I'm going to be opposed to because I'm not confident that Poncan Road is going to be sufficient to handle the traffic that this development is going to create on Poncan Road, especially when their recourse is to go to the schools. So every one of them is going to have to go to the schools down Poncan and down Jason Dwelly for the 2 schools or 3 schools that
right there.
service that area for elementary and middle school. So unless we have some assurances, I'm going to be totally opposed to any increased densities. I like the fact that you're saying there's going to be
Every
lower,
step
but you
we're lowering.
did make a comment that part of it was going to be higher density. I don't want to see higher density because the roads can't handle it.
No, every step of the way we'll be lowering. At future land use, we're taking the 40 acres from 5 dwelling units per acre in Orange County to 3.5 in Apopka, meeting the comp plan. At the PD level, we'll be reducing the higher density allowance. I would call it higher intensity, not density. The commercial availability or commercial entitlement rights for the property north of Pond Can are 2.0 FAR, which is fairly significant. It's more of I wouldn't call it a suburban type commercial. It's a downtown Orlando type FAR density. And so we're taking that down significantly.
Well, I would hope you would meet the surrounding area, which is very residential and still, for lack of a better way, rural for what Apopka is becoming.
Right.
And I know that our community is, not happy with everything, but that's, you have your rights, you have your entitlement rights, but I also have to worry about public safety when it comes to Pond Can, Vic, and the children that are going to be walking down Pond Can on the sidewalks and everything else to go to those schools from this development. That's a concern to me, and those S curves are a significant concern to me.
So with that, I wanted to bring that up as well because you mentioned the schools. I think by adding the 30 feet on both sides, we'll also be able to put a sidewalk much further away from the existing roadway with this development. So I think that'll really help with children's safety and school access.
Okay. Those are my concerns as we move forward. I'm not opposed to the annexation of the future land use as long as it's less density. I'm not opposed to that, but I am going to continue with my concerns, and this is going to increase the need for police services and probably fire services significantly. So
Thank you.
thank you.
One thing I was thinking is that maybe you want to provide a comparison of what, and I know we're just talking about 2 parcels for future land use, but what the overall future land use would allow unit-wise versus what you're proposing, the delta of the difference between the 2 exhibits in regards to the road that the chief brought up and stuff like that. I just want to bring up the point that the annexation is through action of the city council, and they can consider it, and it's their discretion to annex the property or not.
We have the exhibit, and I can tell you right now that if you look at the overall development, the 617 acres, the current entitlements are just shy of 6.3 million square feet of commercial and 1,850 units. Again, this is just future land use and annexation and right-of-way vacation, but the next step when we get to rezoning, you'll see that we're taking the existing entitle rights for 1,850 units and reducing it down to 1,050. So we're taking 40% of it away, and then we're taking over 90% of the commercial, probably closer to 95%, because the 6.3 million square feet of commercial, we're taking it down to only 2 5-acre, let's call them neighborhood commercial type use, right there at the intersection of Jason Dwelly and Ponca, which makes sense to us for commercial uses at that location.
And do you have any commercial users lined up? I mean, what's I thought that this is kind of an interesting area to do the future land use.
Yeah, so the 2 commercial tracks will be retained by the current owners and sold and developed at a later time. I think they're waiting until we get through this process to understand exactly what sort of restrictions and things like that in terms of uses that the city might want to place on those parcels, because they don't want to start marketing it to users that might not be an option, right? Because we have heard from various people about, hey, we don't want gas stations, or we don't want some car washes, those sorts of things. Some of those more kind of transient type of commercial uses, where I think the vision, from what I'm hearing, is, maybe we'd like something like a daycare that the actual residents can use, or services, those sorts of things like that. So
yeah, the other thing that I wanted to bring up to you, Mike, with regard to entitlement rights for the north property, it's in that mixed use East Shore Gateway. It lists 5 different uses that it encourages. One of them is apartments, the other one's gas stations, light industrial, and big box retail. At each community meeting, those are pretty much the things that everyone has said, this is specifically what we don't want. So it's kind of interesting.
Well,
but
we can put anywhere close to consistent with the surrounding area.
Correct. That's the current zoning. That's the current entitlements.
It wouldn't require any public hearings to enable the ability to construct on that if requested, but that's not what we were.
So at the next step, we're coordinating a meeting with commissioners right now. We've also had the 2 community meetings with the PD level, the rezoning. We'll be able to add, we can't do it at future land use at what you're seeing right now, but the next step, we'll add the restrictions to prevent apartments, gas stations, and whatever other uses we've kind of gathered and compiled together. So you'll see that at the next step as well.
Okay.
But again, this is the 40 acres, reducing it from 5 million per acre in Orange County to 3.5 in the city. And the next step at PD, you'll see us reduce 40% for the residential based on the existing entitlements and 90-something% of the commercial.
No, and that's fine. And I realize my comments aren't necessarily for what we're here today, but I want you to hear my concerns right up front.
Yeah, I'd rather hear now.
We can work through these issues, so we don't have to have an argument as we move forward. You understand what my concerns are.
The next step when you show the plan at PD, I think when you'll see the PD master plan, we're in line with exactly what you're asking us to do. So.
Okay. Thank
we'll
you.
continue to work with our traffic consultants to understand what sort of opportunities we have to.
So
help.
with your 30-foot right of way, there's no way to straighten that road out in some capacity, or with
There
the
is.
property that you own.
Well, it's 30 feet on both sides, so it's 60 feet of right of way is what we're getting. There's 60 feet currently. We'll be giving 30 on the north side of Poncan and 30 on the south side of Poncan. Understanding there's some angles, southwest, but so it'll now become 120 foot right of way. We'll be able to push the sidewalks back away from the existing roadway, and we'll be able to straighten out a portion of the curves. All I was saying was like at Pittman, you can kind of see that Wolf Lake gets real close to that intersection. There's going to be some restrictions. You can't just flatten out the whole thing, but we're going to be able to do something or help the county out with something. That's the next step, is to try and figure out.
Well, you
The,
could.
the first step is giving them dedicating 12 acres of right of way. That gives them a lot of flexibility now. And I know they're currently doing a Northwest Corridor study, the county is, and this is one of the roadways that's in their study to evaluate what they could do to improve public safety.
Now, when we annex this, we own the property, or we have the property on all sides of these roads. Do we now have the road? I know for enforcement purposes we do, but do we have it from a city perspective? Does this road become a city road?
Well, you're only annexing remember, it's already annexed. You're only annexing the 40
Right.
40 acres at that southeast corner. Everything else is, this 577 acres are currently in the city.
And Vic Road is already a city road, that they're
Right.
working on potential
Yeah.
design options to improve. So
My question is do we, and that's the last parcel, and we have everything. Do we now take over the road, or?
Nope. It's the county's road, Poncan, right?
It depends on the classification of the road. If it's a functionally classified roadway, it's edge of pavement to edge of pavement. It would be the responsibility of the county, and everything else, the responsibility of the city. However, this is not right now in the being discussed for any transfers, total transfer. Okay, nor the city has requested it to be transferred, to my knowledge. Okay, so it not, it doesn't mean that it cannot happen, but you mentioned that you have discussions with the county staff regarding the roadway and roadway improvements, and what
We've
what
had
kind of
preliminary
discussions
discussions.
have you?
The only discussions we have right now is what they're looking for from a right-of-way dedication, which is the 30 feet on both sides or 60 feet total, to widen it from 60
Okay.
feet to 120 feet. So we've committed to that. Now that we've gotten some preliminary information, some background traffic data, we're starting to put together a plan as far as our proposed improvements, and we want to present that to the county. That's one of the next steps for us while we're running through these
Okay.
entitlements.
Are there any roundabouts included in your improvements?
We're doing one roundabout, or we're proposing one right now in our plan north of Vic, but we're going to evaluate Vic and Poncan to see if a roundabout would make more sense in the signal. I'm not sure that it will, but that's one of the things that the traffic consultant will do. Yes.
I mean, we need to look for more traffic coming,
Mhm.
and just to tag on to what the chief said, yes, it is. It is a dangerous road,
Mhm.
very dark. Street lighting is required,
Mhm.
or will be required, for safety of of the children, and the city would like to see a multi-use path, more than just the 6 foot wide sidewalk
Okay.
along the north side of Pumpkin, so that the children can
To the
really
schools.
safely make it to school and back to their homes. So that would be uh, um, very well, taken by the city. I know it's the county road, but I'm sure we'll be talking to the county,
Yeah.
particularly me,
It'll be a three-party. I'm sure we're going to
particularly me,
coordinate. Yeah.
And as you
which
move
I
forward with, I'm sorry, as you move forward with your sidewalks and designs, since you're the engineer, can you look at the sidewalk that's there because it's poorly designed, and every time it rains, it undermines the sidewalk, and we're out there
Mhm.
redoing the dirt
Redoing it.
underneath it so that it doesn't fall when the kids are traveling down there.
Well, I think by dedicating the 30 feet, that existing sidewalk is probably going
is
to go
going to
away.
go away.
And we'll be, because just the roadway improvements that we're looking at right now on a preliminary basis, the great majority of the sidewalk will be removed. And so it might be something where we just dedicate the 30 feet, and then propose a trail. per
Because
the
every
city's
summer it
request.
gets undermined with the heavy rains, and
Well, those are
we're,
existing problems we're helping to trying to help solve for you, Mike.
well, that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, because you've always been very good at solving my problems, Luke, and I
I think we'll be
appreciate
able
that.
to resolve that and take that worry away from the city, and hopefully provide by pushing it 30 feet away from the road. It's safer for the children. The crosswalks get a lot safer, and it pushes them away from the travel lane, because right now a good portion of that section of Ponca doesn't even have curbing, and you got the sidewalk. I mean, technically the sidewalk's in the clear zone of that road, and so that's not.
Yeah.
That's a very bad situation on any road, particularly a road like this with elevation change and significant curvature and sight distance requirements. So, in the immediate nature, right now, we're currently working with a contractor to cut back the trees and the foliage that are there. That'll help safety just in immediate right now, just because it's the right thing to do for public safety. And then with our proposed plan, we're reducing the proposed density and intensity significantly on this project, and dedicating the right of way, and then we'll work with the county to help resolve the roadway improvements as best we can.
And as you cut back the foliage, the important part of that is to maintain it, because we've had numerous developers go in there and clean that foliage out, and then 6 months later it's all back to where it was, because nobody's responsible for maintaining it, with the exception of me calling public services out there to ask them to knock it back down. So if your developer could keep it maintained, that would be a tremendous help, because we tend to do one thing to resolve a problem, and then that problem's resolved temporarily, but then it comes back, because we all know that in Florida during the summer it's all going to come right back.
Come back.
And ultimately, that can be a condition of the PUD, or it could be that the HOA could take it on into their long term, even after Pulte, say the project moves forward, gets built out, that there's a maintenance responsibility that's ongoing, that the city could even have step in rights to maintain in the event that the HOA did not. Right. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, there to help address that concern, both in the short and the long term.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Any further questions of the applicant?
Sorry, Diane, I'll reach out to you as far as the trail. What is it in the city's trail system? Is there something I can look up,
No,
or what kind of?
I said a multi-use path,
Okay,
not necessarily a trail.
Okay.
Okay, a multi-use path could be a 10-foot sidewalk, which can accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists.
Which makes
It
sense with
doesn't-
kids riding bikes and
Instead of
walking to
6
school.
feet of
Right.
sidewalk, let's just do it on the site where the schools are.
Yeah,
It's a,
I think it
but
makes
it's
a lot
not
of
a
sense. And I
trail
like the idea.
unless there's a trail system that the county wants to bring forward through Pumpkin. Then that's a discussion you have to have with the county.
It also helps feed a lot of people to the Northwest Regional
Correct.
Park. So I think it does both. It handles both in
Correct.
2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. So, okay, I think it's a great suggestion. I think it's something we can definitely take into consideration and hopefully commit to once the PD comes forward. We can't do much right now that annexation, future land use. We can just publicly state that's our intent, because that's all we're here for today. But at the next step at PD, we can commit to those things and put them as conditions of approval.
Okay.
I also just want to support what Chief McKinley was talking about as far as safety goes with Poncan Road. As a resident who's lived there my entire life and traveled it every day, actually been in a couple of vehicle accidents on Poncan as a youngster. We've had a lot of tragedies on that road. A lot of bad things have happened. It's even hit our firehouse at one point. It's a rough area with curves, and I have major worries about what's going to happen with the construction of Poncan. It's something that's going to have to be addressed. It's something I'm going to take very serious on what you guys are going to go through, and it's very important for the city. Thank you.
I just want to state my concerns about the infrastructure as well. And I know you do the tests and all that, but you know how old that stuff is. I mean, it's not old, it's ancient. So just the more and more we start trying to pump through there, we need to make sure that stuff is, strong enough to do it.
And the good thing is this project's significant enough size where it can handle improvement requirements like that. There may be some utility upsizing. There may be some things, because we've had some concerns from surrounding residents. So we can work with the city staff on that as we move forward. Again, we're just here for annexation, future land use, the first steps, but we're starting to coordinate on those things now, and we'll be able to give you much better answers as we get the information from the city and run our modeling and figure out what needs to be improved. But I agree, those are things that we're addressing currently. I just don't have all the answers for you right now to give you that.
Yeah. And there are different methods that could be utilized in order to improve existing lines, zip lining those pipes so that you can strengthen them and protect them from breaking. You can replace them,
Mhm.
you know, upgrade them if needed. Have you done any analysis for a need to upgrade those lines to serve this large development?
That's what we're working with Daw on right now, is doing
Okay,
the model. Right now, he's saying there's capacity, but now we want to look at how much capacity, what can we do to increase and help
okay,
capacity for surrounding neighborhoods as well as this development, and do the pipes actually support based on their lifespan.
okay. Thank
Um,
you.
the other thing is, I know Vic Road is currently under the current city budget. That portion of Vic Road is supposed to be designed
Right.
for an expansion in 2024, 2025 budget. It's already approved for six or
Yes.
700,000.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the things
I'm
that the
just
city
waiting
may.
for from a proposal, a design for design services.
Okay.
On the design is 3 segments.
So hopefully that would also help out with that
So
portion of Vic
there's
Road
three
that Mike
segments
indicated.
of that road that will be designed
Mhm.
and constructed in the future,
And,
near
and
future.
certainly the impact fees from this project will go to help fund the
Mhm.
expansion of that roadway, because I know expansion projects are typically funded through the impact fees. Otherwise, there's not generally the budget for those projects. So
And we could also, we're also planning additional right of way dedication on Vic Road as well. So that'll help with the expansion of Vic leading to Ponca, or
Good.
with everything we control at least.
Yes. Correct.
thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So what we will do is we will do 3 separate actions. One for the annexation of the property here in the Red Square. As I mentioned before, it'd be an action of the City Council. They'll either consider it for annexation or not. I just need clarification as to whether or not it create an enclave from Orange County. If it doesn't, then it would be consistent with Florida Statute 171 annexation and would not create an enclave and be contiguous and compact. So therefore, community development has no further questions on the annexation. Police,
I don't have anything else.
public services,
I don't have anything.
okay, fire,
No other comments. Thank you.
and
I don't
building.
have anything. Thanks.
Okay, and then we'll talk about the 2 future land use amendments for commercial and the residential low suburban. Community development has nothing further on that. Police.
I don't have any other comments other than the comments I've made and ensure that we follow through with those comments. I trust Luke wholeheartedly, so if he's committed to it, I'm sure we're committed to it. So
Okay. Public services.
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay. Fire
No comments. Thank you.
and building.
I don't have anything. Thanks.
All right, and the last item is the vacation of the platted right-of-way. There's no road right there. It's just basically a grass strip, be a 20-foot section, as I understand it. Community development has nothing further other than to add that this would be vacated through a resolution of the city council. Police, any additional items, questions, comments on this?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Public services.
Let me just clarify. 20 feet 20 feet, the exhibit that you have on the board right now shows 40 feet of right away on Sadler. Is it Sadler?
No.
Yes, no. On the, oh, yes, on the unimproved right of way. Okay. So this is
Yes.
the revised legal and the sketch, which only shows 20 feet on the east-west portion of the right-of-way. The north-south portion is 40 feet, and that is will revert back to the property owner, that is the applicant. Okay, so there's two segments. One will be 40 feet wide, and one will be 20 feet wide. Okay, just to clarify this. And we went through the comments and the revised sketch and description, so we are good to go.
All right, thank you. Fire, any questions, comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay. And building.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 5118 Plymouth Sorrento Road Annexation Agreement, first submittal. I'm the project manager. You'll probably recall this came the summer of last year for a annexation. This is up in the KPI. It was an old bar. It's since it was in Orange County as a bar. It was non-conforming. The conforming status of that went away when the person bought the bar. They've approached the city about annexation. Originally, the city or DRC had indicated they would not support the annexation because it did not conform with the KPI. It's not conforming. The applicant approached the city about doing an annexation agreement where they would bring the property up to code as much as possible for the KPI. And then the annexation agreement would basically allow the future land use and the rezoning to village center at the same time as the property was annexed. So basically, the annexation would occur first, then the city council would vote on the future land use and the rezoning. Is the applicant in attendance today? Yes. Okay.
Hello, I'm short, pull that down. Hi, Kelly Turner with LPG, here to represent David Cipollone for the proposed project.
And do you have any questions for the DRC or anything on the comments that you received back?
We did have a question. The concurrent applications, what we understand is they will all, of course, go at the same time. But for the rezoning and FLU, will we have to bring those back before DRC, or is that also being done at the same time?
Yeah, you need to bring that back before the DRC. And as I understand, the master plan, the rezoning requires a master plan. There was a master plan attached as an exhibit to this annexation agreement, if I recall correctly. But yeah, we would have to go back through DRC for the future land use.
Okay, we do have a pre and post conceptual plan for this project since the frontage is eventually going to be used for the road widening. At this point, having, trying to make the whole property into conformance and then having to redo it would be a huge financial strain. So what the plan is to have an initial conceptual come through that meets as much as possible, and then as the frontage is purchased from the property owner, he could then do the post taking concept plan and put in the other improvements.
I'm afraid I don't understand your question.
You mentioned a master plan in a future time, so I was just clarifying that we have two separate conceptual plans, one before the road widening and then one after the widening of the road.
Correct. And that was part of the an exhibit to this annexation agreement.
Correct.
Yes.
We did have also a question about the sewer. Our property owner is looking to come to some sort of agreement with the Wingspan property since it's connecting to this property on all sides except for the frontage, because boring under, bringing that sewer across the road doesn't make financial sense for him, being such a small tavern that's not going to have a full kitchen. Right now, he has it on septic and would be able to conform to the county Department of Health requirements since he's not going to have the full kitchen. He's not putting in the fryers and all the things that would require grease traps and so forth. So at this point, he's looking to move forward on the septic unless he can come to some sort of agreement with the property owner in Wingspan to connect in there close to the property rather than trying to spend the tens of thousands of dollars to bring it over. Doesn't make financial sense for him.
The city's preference is for this owner to connect to sewer because we have, an initiative to eliminate septic tanks within the city to improve water quality. So we would rather see this applicant connecting. It would be beneficial to all. So we encourage the communication between this applicant this owner and the adjacent owner to see if they can connect to their lift station, if that's what they are proposing at this time. Okay.
Okay. And he would also like to do the same.
Yeah, and it's been brought to my attention that it might be a comp plan policy that they might have to connect to sewer. I know that I had gotten information from the Wingspan representatives and had heard nothing back in regards to your client's request.
You said there might be a comp plan that requires them
Comp
to.
plan policy, yes. We'll have to go back and double
Because isn't
check
this
it.
in the Wakaiba Basin also?
Yes.
If it's in the Wakaiba Basin, yes.
Yes.
Then I don't see how we just continue to increase capacity to the sewer and allow the sewer, because I thought everything within the Wakaiba Basin was supposed to be converted to sewer, not septic.
Well, at the current time, there is an existing septic that is there already. So he's not looking to add in any septic, but he knows eventually when the septic fails, he will be having to hook up to a sewer. So that's why he's trying to come to some sort of agreement with the adjacent property owner rather than trying to spend all the money that he's not going to recoup in this small tavern by trying to bring it under the road.
But as he makes the improvements, and I'm not trying to be argumentative here, and you're getting outside of my scope, obviously, but he's changing everything and coming into the city, which means he needs to update to the city requirements. And if our requirement is to move to sewer versus septic, then that's what he has to do. He's not going to be in the county anymore, and it's my understanding the county's not supporting him moving forward with this tavern on this particular parcel any longer. And if we're going to allow it in the city, then he has to comply with what the city's regulations are. And that, I don't believe that is going to be septic.
Understanding that, the reason that the county doesn't want to have it there is because it was closed for a period of time. So now they're stating, hey, it's no longer grandfathered in. Now you have to do, all these extra things. So he's wanting to do the extra things to beautify the property, but to bring it into the city, seeing that as it's already completely surrounded except for the very front across the street by city property. So eventually having to possibly annex in anyway, you might as well get it out of the way first. As far as the sewer goes, I know he's not doing the substantial improvement because he's under the 50% of the existing floor area. So there's some certain requirements that he doesn't have to meet, and also him having the existing septic that's operationable at the time, not having to actually take that septic out until it's no longer able to be used.
Well, if our comp plan says he needs to be on septic, I'm 100% opposed to him. I mean, on sewer, I'm 100% opposed to him staying on septic, just for the record.
Understood. And that's why he's trying to come up with an agreement with that property owner, or I'm sorry, with that developer that's adjacent, because he doesn't have an endless supply of money. He's already putting, tens of thousands of dollars more than expected into this project. And to add to that substantially, it doesn't make financial sense to him because he's not going to have the money to be able to.
And with all due respect, sometimes projects don't make financial sense, but he has to come up with compliance with what the city's going to require or what our codes are and our comp plan is, so before we move forward. And it should really probably going to be not much different than what the county was requiring
What
for that area.
I understand, and he is trying to come up as much as he can. He's doing all of the knee wall requirements and the pre and post requirements. That's going to be a financial strain as well. So we'll go ahead and regroup with the applicant and go ahead and talk about that. In the time being, I know as of now the septic is already there. If it's going to be a make or break for this project, then that's something we'll have to discuss with the applicant. But as of now, he would prefer to move forward as it is until that sewer is no longer operational. As I said, if that's a make or break, then he has to do what he has to do. That's just, he did want me to let you all know that he wants to move forward with the sewer if possible. I'm sorry, with the septic if possible.
And it's my understanding this property is zone ag in the county. Is that correct?
Existing, it is rural.
Okay.
I'm sorry, rural FLU and the, yes, A1 zoning.
And the bar is not even a permitted use in that zoning district, as I understand it.
Right. The bar had been there for decades upon decades, and it's now, since it was closed and he purchased it, that grandfathered use actually was taken off the table.
Okay. Have you approached the county about reestablishing that grandfathered use at all?
He may have gone with the county before coming to the city. That I'm not 100% sure of, but I do know that he did want to reopen the bar, and he wasn't aware that the bar was going to be this whole non-conforming problem.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Not of the applicant, but of the city.
You
So
are the
we're-
city.
I'm sorry. Community development. How's that?
All right.
We're being asked to agree to the annexation agreement that you have on the screen. I think when I sent it back to community development, I had several questions in it.
Mhm.
Were those addressed, resolved? Because I never saw a response.
I've not heard back from the applicant on that.
And without that, I can't
Yeah.
approve the agreement because I don't know if my comments. I think there's a lot of challenges. I don't know if the parking is sufficient for the capacity of that bar. It's a very small piece of property. With the improvements he's planning on making and everything else, I think there's a lot of challenges to move this thing forward. And I don't know. It doesn't sound to me like the city has totally resolved this agreement with the applicant before we move forward.
Yeah, we sent comments to the applicant Monday, the attorney for the applicant, and we've not heard back. So this lady here is here this morning, but as far as a response to the comments, a formal response, no, we've not heard back.
Okay, then I can't move forward with it.
Okay. Community development has nothing further. Police has nothing additional to discuss. Public services.
I would, the only way I would be willing to move this forward would be with the connection to a sewer.
Okay.
A condition that requires the applicant to connect to sewer. And of course, meet all other city code requirements for parking and building, etc.
All right. Okay. Fire.
I also agree with the sewer. Getting it caught up to what city standards are, I think, is important. And far as getting caught up to all codes, considering fire and life safety also.
Okay. Building.
Does the city charter override the Florida Building Code?
City charter is. That's a good question.
We need to find that out because with the existing building code, if she says they're only doing 50%, I believe whatever systems are there are able to stay.
Okay.
The sewer system, and say if they had a well, that would be able to stay as well.
You mean the septic system?
Septic.
Okay. All right.
We might just have to check on that.
That might be a question for the city attorney.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll double that with him. All right. Do you have anything further for the DRC?
I don't have anything further at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, again, are we agreeing to this agreement without responses from the applicant, or and
think
it's
that's
moving forward, or are
been
we
established.
holding it until the applicant responds to all the comments in the?
Like our typical process, until the applicant responds, we're not moving forward.
I just want to make sure everybody on
yes.
this board understands
Yes.
that
Yes.
we don't have answers to the questions that are in that agreement, so it shouldn't move forward.
It's just like our typical projects. Whenever there's comments generated, we need a response back, and then we send them back to the DRC. So that's how this is being handled.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Next item is 438 North Park Avenue, future land use and rezoning. Amir is the project manager on this one. If you'll recall, this was recently annexed into the city. Amir.
Good morning, everyone. So this is a future land use and rezoning application for 438 North Park Avenue. The applicant wants to rezone the property to community commercial with a future land use amendment of commercial. The applicant is here for further questions and comments along with staff.
Any questions for staff or the applicant? Okay. Hearing none. Community development has nothing further. Police.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Public services.
just as an informational item, we just this is the property that abuts Burgess Street. We just accepted a transfer from the county to the city, so now Burgess Street is a city road. uh, and the maintenance responsibilities now and permitting responsibilities now are the cities. So that the applicant knows.
Thank you. Fire.
No comments.
Building.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amir. Okay, we're on Ditch North, future land use. First submittal, Gene is the project manager.
Good morning, everybody. This is a proposed future land use amendment from county rural to city residential, very low suburban. The annexation was brought before you, I think, 2 weeks ago. Um, 2 weeks ago, and this is really just to accompany that annexation. This is the companion ordinance. Planning didn't have an objection, except we wanted to get determination from the city's legal counsel in terms of annexation eligibility. Planning has brought this up more than once about the contiguity issue. We weren't sure if it is eligible on that end. As I understand it, our legal counsel and the applicants were supposed to discuss this, and I haven't heard anything come out of that discussion. So I'm waiting on that determination and to before I can move this forward to public hearings. Otherwise, I didn't get any responses from DRC members.
Thank you, Gene. You're the applicant's attorney as well? All right.
Good morning, Elisa Sowell, with Shetson Bowen. I just wanted to know, I have spoken with the city attorney with Cliff. We have sent him a memorandum of law regarding the contiguity. I don't believe he had any issues with that. He wanted us to confirm with Orange County whether they had any objection. I have spoken with them verbally. They are taking a look at it. I believe the city may have already sent the notice on over to Orange County, and I'm waiting to hear back, but I don't anticipate any issues.
Can you just confirm for me real quick this, and I think, Luke, this is yours, and I think you and I have discussed it, but you have so many projects. This is not going into Lake County, correct?
No.
There are no connections going into Lake County with this subdivision.
Correct. That was the Chesapeake property. That's a separate one. Sorry.
I know, but I get confused, and I just, there's no line up here
No,
for the
this
county
is within
line.
the JPA between Orange County and Apopka. This doesn't reach the county border. It's a separate project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and statutorily, we cannot annex into Lake County.
Right, I know.
Yes.
There's been some questions about some subdivisions in
We
the
had
past wanting to go into
somebody
Lake County. And
asked us to annex into Lake County, and we established that we could not. Yes, yes. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, community development has nothing further. Police,
I don't have anything else.
public services,
I don't have anything else.
building, I'm sorry, fire,
No comments.
and building.
I don't have anything. Thanks.
Okay. Next agenda item is variance for 3000 West Orange Avenue. Amir Hamza is the project manager. I'm the co-project manager on this one. And Amir?
So this is a variance application to allow an industrial building to be built on the site with without the required setback of 10 feet in the rear. Staff has already commented that we will not support the variance application due to the fact that it doesn't provide proof of hardship, since if we decrease the proposed building footprint on that site, the industrial building actually can be built with the 10 feet rear yard setback. And the applicant is in attendance today for further questions and comments along with staff.
All right. Do you have any questions or comments for the DRC?
Good morning, Tara Tedrow, Lowndes Law, 215 North Eola Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Wanted to chat through, there's two sets of comments. One has to do with public safety, and we'll have our engineer talk a bit about that. But I wanted to talk about just the criteria themselves. Sorry, it feels so weird that I'm talking here and you're behind me, but wanted to talk through the criteria in terms of the proposed hardship. Is there a plan that we could pull up on the screen for this one? The variance is requested because the existing building prior to demo had been right along a rail spur. And it's an industrial building, and the utilization of the rail spur requires that proximity for loading and unloading purposes. So it had always had a 0-foot setback, again, for utilization of the spur. And so we were requesting in the new plan to have that same 0-foot setback along the railway so that obviously it can be utilized. We did get a comment back saying that that wouldn't meet a hardship criteria. In my review of the code, and this comes from section 2.5.5 sub A5A, prior to approving a zoning variance, the Planning Commission shall first determine whether the need for the proposed variance arises out of the physical surroundings, shape, topographical condition, or other physical or environmental conditions that are unique to the specific property involved. If a special circumstance makes it difficult for a particular project to meet the LDC, a hardship may be established, and it may be created by the surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions particular to that specific property. I know hardships can be a little bit interesting sometimes when applicants claim everything is a hardship. We're not claiming it's a hardship because it's costing us money. We're not claiming it's a hardship just because we feel like we like it. I mean, truly, in order to utilize the railway, our industrial users have made it clear that you have to be on the rail line in order for us to be able to have that industrial component. So we don't know how to get CSX to move anything for us or bring it close. It's making it truly a hardship, and it's not self-imposed. It's particular to the fact that we are on a rail, which is what not all industrial properties are on. So not all properties are going to be utilizing this. It's a condition that we had previously. So we were hopeful that we might be able to get that variance approved in order for the utilization of the property for its intended industrial nature. So I just wasn't sure, what planning's staff's thoughts were on that particularly.
The building was torn down, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so at one point in time, it was a non-conforming use or non-conforming because of the setbacks.
Right.
So the non-conformity has gone away.
Right, which we understand.
So that's where our reasoning is coming from.
Yeah, and we get that, which is why we have to request the variance. But our contention is that this is a special circumstance. It is unique to this property. It is based on the physical conditions unique to a specific property. So, my read of code was that we would meet those criteria for establishing a hardship. We weren't sure if that was a conversation maybe we could talk offline with staff, or if there was something I didn't see in the staff report because it wasn't a full explanation of why.
Yeah, I mean, we could have further discussions if you'd like. Like I said, one of the reasons is the building was torn down, so obviously it could meet the 10-foot setback. The second item or question I do have for you: has the railroad sent a letter of no objection to you?
We haven't reached out yet because we wanted to get through with you all first, just to make sure.
This was our first step.
Yeah.
Obviously, a significant amount of spending on professionals such as myself. I'm Andrew Island, engineer of record with Langen Engineering, on behalf of the applicant.
Step up. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm Andrew Island with Langen Engineering, representing the applicant. I am the civil engineer, intend to be the civil engineer of record for the project to come. A significant amount of coordination and final design will have to take place at significant expense if we can successfully get downstream of this decision. So a lot of future work and coordination hinged on us getting a successful determination here. So this was the first step. Okay. Because of that, we have not engaged with CSX yet.
Is it the city's position that there's a preference for CSX? Maybe we're playing chicken and the egg and we've not assigned those roles properly. Should CSX say yes first?
I think that the building was grandfathered in because it had been there for a long time. Okay, but things have changed over the years.
Sure. And
of course, the engines have also changed over the years. Therefore, there's a safety factor for those engines, and that's why setbacks are set. Also for the buildings and the building owners. Okay, it's a safety factor that provides the setback. It should have been part of the due diligence to go to CSX and ask them first, because, of course, it's we work together with the railroad systems in the city so that we can all coexist. Okay, and this is very important. A building so close to the rails, it's a it's a risk that not only the city takes, but also the railroad operators or administrators. Okay, so I would suggest you go talk to them. I personally would not support the variance in this case because I've dealt with railroad systems for many years while I was at the county, and I know how they feel about the separation between the rails and any structures. So,
I think it's worth. I think it's worth clarifying. We are not asking for relief from any either city or CSX separation from a rail, a physical rail. We're the setback is or the lack thereof is the distance between that face of building
correct.
and the right of way line. The rail is set back.
Yeah, but you're abutting the railroad right of way line.
Yes, understood. I just
So,
wanted to make sure.
so that's that. I mean, setbacks are there for a reason. In this case, it's very, in my eyes, it's very important to maintain that separation between the right of way line for the rails and the building, the structure. It's
Would
a
it,
protection that we feel it's needed for those structures. You never know when one of these uh, engines is gonna run off the rails, and the potential is always there. So, uh, the I think you have room to move the building or to provide the separation. I don't know uh, what your intent is with the new building. I assume it's similar uses as they were there before. Um, but now we're talking about a totally new building. So now the opportunity is there to meet the city code.
right? I would. Understand your position. I feel like we're getting pretty deep in the intricacies of exactly how a rail using industrial building should interact with a rail spur. Would it be helpful if we had a strong agreement from CSX that it's that the building and the spur serving this building are oriented properly with respect to one another? Because we should also be clear, this is not a rail line. The closest rail is not a rail that it's not regional that sails by. We're already talking about a rail that
It's a spur.
is a spur to serve this
Yeah,
property
it's
and
a
a few downstream, down rail, if you will.
Is it going to serve this property,
Mhm.
or is this property not going to? Is it going to have doors in
Me-
the back to unload from a train? I don't think the train stops there. So if you're not going to use
Well,
the
that's a chicken and the egg.
spur for product material or whatever, you really don't need it.
So that's a chicken and the egg situation. The rail doesn't stop there currently, in the most obvious sense, because this building has been demolished. But prior to that, and it had to be demolished due to safety reasons. There had been a fire and significant damage to the building. But notwithstanding that, the prior tenant of this building was not making use of rail loading. But
my question is the future.
So yes, so
that's all in the past. That building's gone.
Correct.
That's history.
So
if
the
future
intent,
tenants have no intent of using that rail, then there's no reason we should approve this variance.
So the intent, the reason we're here is the developer intends to market this as wants to build a new warehouse space and offer rail service. So we're trying to set this up as a rail using warehouse.
Well, then, to me, before we can move forward with approving this, also you'd have to have some kind of agreement with the city that there's going to be doors at the back of this building to service that railroad. Otherwise, there's no reason to even be discussing this. But it may not be approved anyway by the city engineer.
Yeah, I think that seems eminently reasonable. That's kind of at the center of why we've made the request.
That could certainly be. I mean, conditions can get added. So if that was a condition that
I'm not putting conditions on it, but to me, it makes no sense if your building that you're going to build does not have doors or loading platforms to load from the
understood
train rail, and something from CSX that says they would stop there to unload.
So there's not an end user lined up yet. It's going to be marketed as a building that would be accessible by a rail, via rail.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, just so you all understand the logic of why we did the steps that we did, we typically wouldn't go engage. You all are more user friendly than CSX is. No negative comment to CSX, but you're more user friendly. So
I appreciate that because I've never been told that before.
we really, I mean,
Well, it's a low bar.
His words, not mine.
That wasn't a compliment.
He said what everybody's thinking.
We would come to the city. If the city says we can get a variance, then we can go to CSX to get the agreement to continue the utilization of the existing spur, and then we can market it out to the public. I mean, if we just started marketing a property open for railway, we have no building built, we don't have the ability to utilize it, and CSX has never said yes. That's just never the progression of how the deal would have
to
gone.
the city engineer's comments, unless they agree to A, stop there,
Yep.
B, to allow you to build that close to their right of way,
Yep.
we still have to overcome how does public safety get back there? Because now we have an opportunity to make a building that is public safety, especially for the fire department, to get equipment back there if there is a fire, a train derailment that or something might have gone wrong with the train that stopped there to unload or something else. We couldn't deal with that in the past, but we have an opportunity to fix this now.
Understood. So what we'll do is we'll get some information from CSX to make sure that if constructed the way that we're showing it would meet their standards for safety, that would be necessary for utilization, that they are willing to serve the property through the existing spur and then that we can have doors on the back so that we're not just getting a setback and then there's actually no way to unload or load onto the railway.
It's worth noting that until recently, the tenant of the other building that's remaining just on the site, just west of this, until recently, that was this building that's now been demolished. The prior building that had been demolished was occupied by that same tenant, Bloom. They're a manufacturer of like flower pots, and the same rail spur does serve the other building today. They receive various products and materials via rail.
And this is more for Jeremy. In the past, when we've dealt with this property, because this property's been like all over the place, there was a question about access to a fire hydrant on this property, and I don't know if we ever resolved that or not. I think it might be on the other building behind it in a corner somewhere or something. Did we ever resolve that? Because that may affect your.
I don't think we ever did resolve, but I do think that hydrant, if I recall, is on the.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I think that hydrant's on the G Electric backside, like that roadway that goes through there, and the backside comes down. I think that hydrant's back there, and we had ran into it. And if I recall, it was in need of some service.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that would be certainly something we can surface the applicant and have taken care of.
Obviously, once we get a little further into it, the hydrant conversation is going to come up, and the water, and making sure we're covering all angles and avenues of what we're dealing with the property.
Of course.
And that's why I brought it up, because I know that we've had discussions about some other plans for this property, and the fire hydrant became an issue.
We're going to have to do fully engineered hydraulics, full blown, construction plan, site plan process that would address all those issues.
We had an entrance question too, wasn't that, Chief, that we brought up for a secondary access? We talked about entrance coming through under the 429 and widening that or something.
Yeah, there's been issues with a secondary entrance.
Yeah, that's something we wanted to press. So our two DRC comments that were kind of related were, I believe, police said, how's it going to work with 0-foot setback? We have concerns about the setback itself from the rail, from a public safety component. And then the other was, we didn't get a specific comment. The comment, I believe, was from fire, just said, we have concerns about access. So are there any more specifics on the access concern you can give us?
I know we're always trying to look for a secondary access, whether it's emergency access or what it is. Previously, we had discussed, and they were having issues trying to accomplish that. And something we're looking for is an emergency access to this property. God forbid something happens at the 429 or underneath it right there. That's our only access point into the property.
Yeah, we've provided it, so we're a little confused why we got the comment. We, on several iterations back of things the applicant was contemplating doing with this site, At least at that time, with the staff involved at that time, I don't know if it's the same personnel. We reached a plan for a second means of access that we believed both police and fire had signed off on as acceptable, and
Okay.
that is
This is,
what we are still proposing.
okay, I'm fine with that.
Did the county?
Uh,
Because I thought at one point the county was involved in that and wasn't, or the expressway authority or somebody. Has all that been cleared up?
The expressway authority has weighed in and they have no issue with it.
Okay.
They don't, as long as we didn't violate like physical clearance of the expressway, they have limited authority really to object because we do own land and fee. They have air rights, if you will, to have the expressway over it. But it is the applicant's land. And Orange County will be involved because we're connecting to an Orange County roadway, and we've already had discussions with them that,
I know there's a holdup somewhere.
yeah, providing an
with that
emergency.
secondary entrance.
No, but yeah, it's the main holdup is just it was all the back and forth of how to best physically accomplish it given the constraints and make sure that it checks all of your boxes, that police, fire, and everyone else is happy with the level of access that we're providing. But Orange County had no objection to providing an emergency only connection.
Okay.
Second connection.
Yeah, my reason for comment, it's been a while, and I was just double backing on making sure we're still on the same page. All right.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Sounds like we need some more information.
And then we'll come back.
And then come back to DRC.
I appreciate it.
Community.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks for the compliment.
You're welcome.
She said
They're
it.
not going to agree with you, but I appreciate it.
Okay. Chief, I think you're great. Any items for discussion? We're adjourned.